Thank you for listening to Persian Women in Tech's podcast, Pivot Sheroes, created to introduce and elevate the profile of successful Iranian women in tech.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to Persian Women in Tech's podcast, Pivot Sheroes, created to introduce and elevate the profile of successful Iranian women in tech. My name is Sepideh Nassiri, your host, founder and CEO of Persian Women in Tech and Women of MENA in Technology. Our mission is to elevate the profile of Iranian women who are successfully trailblazing through their career, introduce them to you and tell their stories. We hope through their stories, you will be inspired to take on your career path in STEM. I'm super excited about our guest today, Sally Norouzi. She's the Principal CX Evangelist, Salesforce EMEA. Hi, Sally. How are you today?
Hey, Sepideh. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Sally, you have such an incredible background. I mean, already at Salesforce, which is one of the largest companies with over 6 years experience just at this company. You've had 2 years of experience plus at Caesars Entertainment in UK. Your background goes with so many different brands, including BMW, Mini, and so forth. So your career path has been a very interesting one with so many different opportunities to take you where you are today. And I'm sure our listeners are super excited to hear how you mapped out your career to where you are today. Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and hello to all the lovely listeners who are tuned in. I'm Sally Norouzi. As you can tell from my accent, I'm based out of London, and I am a principal customer experience evangelist at Salesforce. And when I'm not in tech, I'm cooking. So I also have a food blog, and I'm a cook as well.
This is so awesome. I love the diversity of your background and what you do in your workspace, but also at home, and how you identify that there is more than just work for you. Many of our listeners always want to know how everyone gets to their success story throughout the path, and what was the most challenging moment in your life, and how did you overcome the situation to get where you are today? Is there a significant moment that you would recall?
Yeah, absolutely. Sepideh, as I was preparing for this talk, I was having a conversation with my mum. I mean, she, as cliche as it sounds, she's like a best friend, she's like a sister. And we were just reflecting on those things. And one of the things I'd like to definitely call out here is that challenging moment in my life was choosing my degree. And I mentioned my mom because she was there in that moment with me, struggling. And I think this is a really important one, because when you leave school at the age of 16, that's overwhelming as it is. Going from wearing uniform to finding your identity in college is hard enough at the age of 16. And then to be put in a position to pick your course for your future life is really hard. I'm sure we can all relate to that moment where we've been in careers libraries and had to pick a topic, especially so when we didn't have the resources that we did. And most importantly, we didn't have as many role models as we have today. So role models and representation for me are really important. I always believe that you can't be what you can't see. So I just remember distinctly being at college, trying to think about what I want to study where I don't have the representation, especially in tech, around me. So trying to shape what a career could look like at the age of 16, not knowing the name of the course that I want to do, which is why I really believe it's important that there's more representation and role models out there, and why I really mentor young people to try and show the different roles and careers that can actually exist out there. It is possible to have your dream job.
Yeah, you touched something, stating about taking on at such an early age a career path and wanting to study that career path. that decision at such a young age. There's some of us who know exactly what they want to be at the age of 13 or 12 or 3, and they move forward, and that's the linear, path that they take. But some of us, we want to explore and really want to understand what we are going to do in the next 20, 30, maybe 50 years. Depending on, of course, innovation and technology has had tremendous impact on what your workspace, your work life could look like. And you mentioned and touched base on representation and inspiration. I'm curious, since you mentioned that, was there anyone or anything that had a great impact on your life to push you to the directions that you have taken, or the directions that you want to still take?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you think about what's had an impact on your life, sometimes you think about, was there a significant moment? I think everyone's waiting for that aha moment. Or was there a person in your life? But for me, it comes in different shapes and forms. Number one, without a question of a doubt, is my mother. She knew my strengths and my weaknesses, which really provided that great clarity for me. It provided guidance and emotional support, but also just having her professional opinion was really important there. I would say confidence as well is something that it's not tangible, but it's something that gives you that ability to flourish and focus your energy on excelling on what you want to excel in. So it's really important to believe in yourself and have that self-belief. I was really lucky to have someone in front of me who was a bit of a role model. It's Jeremy Waite. He's an evangelist at IBM. When I said you can't be what you can't see, for me, he was the evangelist that I aspired to be like. So if I didn't have him in my life, I probably wouldn't be at Salesforce or be in the maybe field of tech, because I was so energized by what he was doing. And the other things for me that have an impact on my life is creativity and freedom. Luckily, I was brought up to have a lot of freedom and creativity. Music makes me really creative, but I had that blend of the academic side as well. Creativity and academic is a funny mix, but for me, that's really important, probably because of my background. So for me, it was, really focused on doing exams. I studied music. I actually played the classical guitar when I was younger. So that drive to have a routine and have some type of habit around excelling in something kind of began at an early age. And it was really hard because as a child, you want your Saturday mornings where you just want to watch, children's TV, but I had to get up and go to guitar lessons. So it was easy to get up, but it really just made me learn the spirit around perseverance. And that's kind of ingrained in me now, and never giving up. The other thing that has an impact on me is fashion too. So music and fashion definitely keeps my kind of creative soul alight, but with that academic blend too.
It's very interesting how you, when we look at academic and then we say, oh, all these other aspects of life and how they can still impact our view of things, even within the academics or within our career path. So, and music, of course, our creativity just opens up, and the mindsets and how we see things or do things can be so different, which, brings me to a question that I always think about, looking back at my younger self, and you can pick an age, whatever age that makes sense for you, what you would tell yourself now, looking back at the experiences you have had and opportunities or resources, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, so I would probably look back into my 20s. It's that decade where you're defining and refining yourself. So if I was to look back, I would just say to myself, trust the process. A lot of people can maybe be a bit impatient sometimes and want everything now, which is incredible, incredible to have that drive and vision for yourself. But sometimes things happen for reasons. And I think trusting that process is really important. Also, just again, it comes down to confidence. You know, it's like self-esteem that you may have for yourself or someone gives you. So whoever is in your tribe that fuels that for you, everybody, you need cheerleaders around you, whether it's yourself or people around you. You need that confidence and self-esteem to take things on. Patience, faith, perseverance, I think they're all important things as well. So with perseverance is, if you pick something, give it your best shot. Don't give up too easy. And really think about how imperfections are your perfections, because, you know, especially in a day and age like now with social media. I mean, social media was there obviously in my 20s, but it's not what it used to be. There's nothing like that now. So just remembering who you are as an individual. You know, there's a great quote I read is, why do you want to look like anyone rather than yourself? So make your imperfections your perfection, and know your strengths and weaknesses. For example, I knew that I studied a lot, but I never performed well in exams. I don't know what would happen. I would just panic. And then knowing that will help me pick the right degree where, you know, it was more practical work and a lot of assignments, because that's the type of learner I am. So again, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and if you're not strong in a particular area, that's okay. Just recognize it and move forward to kind of foster that too.
So beautifully said. You know, with the structure that you have mentioned and discipline that you have mentioned, I'm very curious about how your morning routine looks like, or your day. Of course, things have changed because of the pandemic, and work and life balance has changed, and depending on where you live, and you are in London, I'm curious what that looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say post-pandemic is another routine that you come to grips with. I'd say you start with a really good stretch. That's how I like to just start my morning. So, you know, I listen to some podcasts and people say, oh, I spend 45 minutes doing yoga, and it just feels so unachievable. But to be really honest, I do a bit of yoga. But however little or small, it can be 5 minutes, it can be 1 minute, it can be 10 minutes, it can be a full hour. Whatever you need, just to give your body that moment in time to just awake and start your day. That's really important to me. Hot water lemon, the first thing I drink, and then of course followed by homemade Persian tea. So yeah, that's definitely a morning routine as soon as I get up. But journaling, I have different types of systems of journaling. You've obviously got the kind of gratitude journal, but I journal my week, so I know what's ahead of my week. Got a good balance of social and work, and I've got a clear frame of mind on what meetings I'm going into and what the goals are for those sessions. I also like to read through my inbox on all the trends watching I do that's relevant to my role. But, you know, with routines, I think it's really important to change your routine. I like to think of it as you change your morning routine, like you change your shampoo every couple of months. So I think routines should be seasonal. Maybe don't try and have the same routine all the time. So I'm constantly adjusting. I think you need different adjustments and different spices to your routine, depending on, you know, what you're feeling in that moment of time as well. So every day can be different too.
Absolutely. That was so great. And I think that's true. Everyone has a different routine that aligns with their lifestyle. I think each of us have different ways of doing things. I definitely can't do that 45-minute yoga that you mentioned. Yeah. But I'm definitely into that stretch. I do that. And serenity is so important in the morning before we dive into the craziness of the day that comes ahead to us. Any recommendation for books that you can give advice on that have maybe impact your life that our audience might want to read or should read?
Yeah, so these books are books that I've personally read that have definitely played a role in my life. I would definitely be really honest here and say I used to really struggle with reading. I found it really hard to connect to a book, B, have the patience to read through a book and just read, but be present reading. So, sometimes you can read a book and you're skimming and you're thinking, did I even read or absorb what was that? Or was I just planning my next meal in my head? So the books that I like to read are, they're quite business-minded books. They're quite spiritual books. So the very first book that comes to mind is Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso. She's the CEO and founder of Nasty Gal. So in the e-commerce world where I began, she was an absolute role model, still is to this day for me. I think the New York Times describes her as the Cinderella of tech, which I love. So yeah, massive fangirl of her. The other book that I recently read was The Art of Possibility. That's definitely something that talks to me in terms of really thinking about the potential and never giving up and always seeing the positive side of things. And then the other book I love is Talk Like TED. It's my dream to do a TED Talk one day. And this book is incredible because it basically summarizes all the greatest TED Talks out there for you. So you just, you take all the key moments from there, the anatomy of how the TED Talk is structured. Storytelling is something I'm deeply fascinated with. And the other one I'd love to share is The Source. So it's actually called Open Your Mind, The Source, Change Your Life by Dr. Tara Swart. Really recommend that one. Again, it's quite a spiritual book. It's all around positive mindset and just kind of taking control of your own mind and your own actions. I hope those are useful to certain people. They definitely are my favorite books on my top shelf.
Amazing. And, these are definitely also ways to inspire us when we read these books and hopefully gives us directions. So thank you for that and for those suggestions. I'm curious to hear, this is something that I think each person has certain beliefs, and that might define them for work, for life. Is there anything that you truly believe, but the majority of people are against or don't think that way? Maybe this is something you comment on, or it's a philosophy of yours that not everyone might agree on.
Yeah, I definitely think this comes from potentially like obstacles that I've had in my life as well, that I still feel there's pockets of it that exist today. The first thing that kind of instantly comes to mind is ageism. And, I personally have experienced this where sometimes in positions I may have, I know I look young, so I look younger than I am, or I am actually young in that moment of time. And because I might not have been senior enough, it's you kind of get questioned on what you're doing. But what I love about Salesforce and the generation we're in is how we really empower millennials to speak forward and bring their ideas, and their ideas is just as good as someone who's really seasoned and tenured as well. So I do believe in talent in the younger generation and actually giving people a voice in the platform very equally. I think that's really, really important, because sometimes, especially as women, if you couple that with gender, I think it's a harder conversation sometimes. Even to this day, I feel like I have to introduce myself maybe 3 times as harder when I'm going into an engagement. Sometimes I feel like I have to have a slide to really kind of explain my role, my experience, and my background, to feel, maybe it's me feeling more confident, but it's also me feeling like I need to do that and explain myself and reintroduce myself a little bit harder. So yeah, I think perception is something that we need to get better at, giving everybody an equal opportunity, no matter how young or tenured they are. And and of course, whatever gender they are, working what the field is.
You reminded me of The Intern movie. I don't know.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Where it was such an interesting, perspective. The tenured individual had things to learn and explore, but then he also taught so much to that entrepreneur and gave perspective on the old ways, some of the things that were much more needed. So it's a give and take. It doesn't matter at what age we can learn, but we have so much to give as well because of our perspective and the experiences that we might have had in our life. That just popped up while you were talking to me. That was very interesting. And I think
I love that movie.
Yes, me too. Me too. I think it's such, and this is also, it gives you a wake-up call that at any age, especially today, I think we can have so many different experiences depending on where we live and what industry we are in, and opportunities that can arise. I look back at what the opportunities I had back in the days and what's possible today for a freshly graduate, and I'm just like in awe the opportunities that arise. So there's certainly age doesn't matter. I think it's how you can experience and what you can bring to the table, and perspective is so important in all groups as well. Diversity of perspective.
I would say that my role models are kids, like literal kids. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend checking out the H&M campaign Role Models. And it's literally a video of the cutest children just talking, and it's just so inspirational. The things that come out of their mouths is just jaw-dropping. It's so cool.
That's awesome. You should definitely send that to me. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I will.
My next question for you is, looking at the future, what would you do if you knew at this moment, or in a certain moment in your life, you can achieve anything you want and there is no failure? That means anything you want is accessible to you. What would that be?
I think it's not worrying about failing. I think it's if you think about that, it's just having that growth mindset of every experience is learning. It's not failing. It's only failing if you think you failed. So it's just about learning from it. So again, just approaching things with kind of a growth mindset and not being too hard on yourself, and just being unique in your ways and true to yourself. I don't think you should look at failure as something that you create for yourself. It's just a pure learning.
And there isn't anything specific that you would do with that if you knew that you could do anything? Are you content in where you are today?
Career-wise, I do feel really content with where I am. I think it's just the way my mind works, of not being afraid. I think it's something it's been distilled in me as a child when I was younger. There are still these days I do keynote presentations and I just have that thing, like, what am I doing before I go in? But I think it's for me, I kind of angle that to, it's just excitement, it's just passion. It's not nerves and I'm worried about failure. It's just healthy nerves because I want the audience to have a really good time or learn something. So yeah.
That's amazing. And I think fear is something that stops a lot of people to do something or explore something. So
yeah.
Sally, what is it that you would like to leave on this earth if you left it in 5 years? Or what would you do if you left this world in 5 years?
I would like people to think that I've inspired them. I would, and that could be through, my daily engagements through work, whether it be through people learning some cooking, some Persian cooking on my Instagram, people feeling inspired, and people also just having self-belief, inspiring people to really reach their full potential, because I feel it really upsets me when I feel people are too hard on themselves. I want people to be kinder to themselves. And also the other legacy for me is just young talent. It's nurturing young talent really going for it, young talent having roles and representations around them so they can see what they want to be, and having those resources around them. And, last but by no means least is having that dream job. If you've got a dream job, you can make it happen. It might sound cliche, it might feel intangible for some people, But if you manifest it and you work hard for it, it can happen.
So beautifully said. I think that closes out the conversation. I mean, that inspiration right there, Sally, I think our listeners are just going to go for it now. Trailblazing, hopefully, and do what they want to do. I think we are in such an incredible time these days that nothing can hold us back. With all the innovation, all the opportunities, anyone can seize the moment and hopefully takes on a career path they enjoy. I mean, it's so beautiful that you said you're content in what you have right now. You are actually excited in what you're doing, and there isn't something else you would want to do, even if you had all of those possibilities. So hope that there are more people out there that feel this way, that they're happy and excited in what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Any last word for our audience?
First of all, just a massive thank you for listening, and just leaning into this movement and this body of work that we're creating with women and men. It's really important that pockets of people come together, however big or however small. We are in a really exciting time right now where change can happen and change is happening. So I'd always say, if you've got an idea, if you feel something, every voice matters. Just share your ideas, connect with people, and just if you want to make a change, come forward and make it happen with like-minded people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sally, for your time and beautiful insight. We are always in awe with our trailblazers. And to the audience, thanks for listening. If you haven't already downloaded or are following us on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on YouTube, to learn, hear, and get inspired by our speakers. And thank you so much, Sally, for today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week on P with Heroes. Make sure to visit our website, PersianWomenInTech.com, where you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and SoundCloud so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on our podcast platforms and share the podcast link with friends and help us elevate Iranian women in tech and inspire our community.